All right, let's take a look at Wheelock chapter 15. We're going to be dealing with numerals in Latin and then some expressions for how to talk about portions or parts of wholes, whole groups, as well as some time expressions. So let's get to it. As far as numbers or numerals go, there are two basic types of numbers that we want to talk about: cardinal numbers and ordinal numbers. And just to pause for a minute and make sure we're clear on the difference between these two, cardinals are used for counting. So numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? There are 52 cards in a deck. These are cardinal numbers. Ordinal numbers are adjectives, in effect, and these are used for naming the position of something in a sequence or an order. And so you see the word ordinal, you can see the root of order in that. So numbers like first, second, third, or if I get the last card of the deck, it's the 52nd card, right? It's the 52nd in an order. So Latin has both cardinal and ordinal numbers. We want to talk about those here in our lesson today. So the Latin cardinal numbers, what we see first of all is that the cardinals up to 100 are indeclinable adjectives, and what that means for us, which is actually good news, is that they don't change their form. So we're not going to have a different form for the accusative case versus the nominative case, and there won't be gender distinctions in the forms either. So that's good. That's good. We don't have to memorize those distinctions. But there are some cardinal numbers between 1 and 100 that are declinable, and we want to go through those real quickly here. All right. So the first one is the number 1. That's unas here, and remember when we have a 3 ending or a 3 termination adjective, we're going to see a form for the masculine. And then when we see a second ending, that's going to be feminine. And then the third ending will be the neuter form. So those are the 3 gendered endings for the adjective 1. Now the genitive singular for unas, unum, is unius, unius. And you might recall that we have special ius adjectives from chapter 9. You may want to go back and review that, where in the genitive singular we see this ius form, and in the dative singular we have a long I for the dative singular case ending. And the forms are the same in all 3 genders for that form. So this follows the standard otherwise 2-1-2 pattern, where 2 stands for second declension, 1 stands for first declension, 2 stands for 2 stands for second declension here. And again, what this is showing us is the declension pattern of the masculine, feminine, and neuter forms. Now the numbers 2 and 3, these are declinable as well. They are only plural in form, which sort of makes sense because if I have 2 of something or 3 of something, it's not going to be singular. Technically, the O of the word for 2, duo, is the remnant of an old dual grammatical form in Latin. So it used to be the case that in Latin there were 3 number categories. Right now, we only think of 2, singular versus plural, but there was a dual form. So singular would have been for 1, dual for 2, and then plural would have been for anything that was 3 or more. But that dual form has fallen by the wayside, and so we don't really see dual forms anymore. But this is a dual form technically. Now the forms of duo are a mixture of first and second declension with third declension. So when we look at the paradigm, you'll see what look like the normal first and second declension forms, as well as some of our standard third declension forms. And then the word for 3, tres, these are third declension I stem adjectives in their pattern. And we don't actually know the adjectives that are I stem. That's coming in chapter 16, but we have been introduced to I stem nouns of the third declension. And you can just go back to chapter 14 if you want to review that. So without further ado, let's read the paradigm here for the numbers 2 and 3 in their declined forms. So we'll start with the masculine form here. And I just want, well, I'll read these. Why don't you just repeat after me? So duo, duorum, duobus, duos, duobus. All right. So nominative being just two, of two, to, or with two, to, from to, and that sort of thing. So I won't translate these each time, but just wanted to give you a sense that when you have these forms in a particular case, they can be translated with those case semantics. All right. Feminine. Duai, duarum, duabus, duas, duabus. All right. Now notice that this feminine, that is a plural nominative case ending for first declension, right? So that's very standard. And notice that we have the long A versus the long O here of our genitive plural. This is standard second and first declension sort of genitive plural case endings. But this bus here that we're seeing in these forms, that's third declension os and as. That's back to second and first declension accusative plural. So there's a mixture going on here. All right, let's look at the neuter forms. Duo, duorum, duobus, duo, duobus. All right, again, the forms for masculine and neuter here happen to be identical to each other versus duai. But I also want to point out that in the neuter, we have this very standard principle for neuter nouns, which is that the nominative and the accusative are always the same as each other, and that is the case here. As far as the masculine forms, not so, right? Duo and duos. So we see the distinction in masculine, not in neuter. If you remember, with third declension, the masculine and feminine third declensions are identical in nominative and accusative, plural. So we won't see a distinction there, but there is in first and second declension. And that brings us to the word three, tres. Okay, in tres, there's only two forms, and the first form covers masculine and feminine together. So this column does double duty for both genders. The neuter form is over here on the right, and because this is a third declension adjective, and it's an I stem as well. Again, we'll talk about that in the next chapter. I want you to notice that the nominative and accusative are following standard third declension behavior, where we have ace for the ending, and they are the same in nominative and accusative, plural. All right, so let's just read these. You can repeat after me. Tres, trium, triebus, tres, triebus. And then for the neuter, tria, trium, triebus, tria, triebus. All right. So we did learn, if you remember, neuter I stem noun like mare, which was C, and the forms of C were I stem in the plural were Maria, Maribus. I'm sorry, Mariam, Maribus, Maria, and Maribus. Okay, so we have exactly the same I stem endings here on tria as well. All right, now for the word thousand, in the singular, the word thousand is mille, mille, and this is an indeclinable adjective. So it's not here because it's declinable. It's just that it needs to go here because another form of thousand is declinable. In the plural, this is only a neuter I stem noun. And this is used when we want to number thousands, or we could be indefinite about it as well. We could say thousands of men, and we're going to use this neuter plural form, milia. Or we could number the thousands, right? So 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. Then we're going to put a cardinal number in front of milia, all right? But if we only have 1,000 of something, we're going to use mille, and it's indeclinable, followed by the noun. So let's look at the forms here. And actually, we don't have to read them all. It's mille all the way down. So this covers all three genders because it's indeclinable, no gender distinctions. And it covers all the cases as well, so that's really nice. And if you know the word millennium, 1,000 years, this is that root. Now here are the neuter plural forms of thousands. Milia, milium, milibus, milia, milibus. All right, great. So what I've given you here in the box is just an example of saying 1,000 of something versus thousands of something using a masculine and a feminine noun. So if I want to say 1,000 men here, a thousand men, I want to use mille plus the word men here, which is wir in the nominative plural. So viri, viri. So mille viri. And notice that mille is mille because mille is always mille. If I want to say 1,000 women, notice it's mille feminae, feminae. And this is, again, these are both nominative and plural forms, and one's masculine, one's feminine, because we're talking about men versus women. But mille doesn't change because it's indeclinable. But over here, I have milia virorum, thousands of men. And so notice I have a genitive plural form here because I'm wanting to indicate thousands of what. Milia is neuter though, and don't forget that it's always neuter when it's neuter plural. And then if I want to say thousands of women, I'm still using the neuter form milia, but it's going to have a feminine genitive form here because it's not thousands of men but thousands of women, right? So milia feminarum. All right. So this is the difference between using mille versus milia. All right, let's go down here. One more comment. While the cardinal number 100, centum, is indeclinable, the reason this is under the declinables section is that all the other hundreds type of numbers, 200, 300, 400, up to 900, those numbers are declinable. And they are declined as regular plural 212 adjectives. In effect, when we have two sets of 100, then we're counting, right? Two hundreds, as it were. And so these are all plural, and they're following 212 pattern. And so we have E, nominative masculine plural, in second declension, I, nominative feminine plural, first declension, and then is the nominative neuter plural, second declension. All right, so ducenti, ducentai, and ducenta. Which one do I use is going to depend on what the gender is of the noun I'm numbering. Okay, let's take a look at Latin ordinal number section here. The numbers designating order in a sequence are normal 212 adjectives, and so they're going to decline very normally. And that means that if I want to say the first man, for example, or the third woman, these words that are ordinals, first and third, they're going to agree with the nouns, case, gender, and number if they're functioning attributively. As adjectives, they could also function substantively. I ate the first, or ate the first one. I killed the third, or I killed the third one. Right? That's a substantival use of the adjective. And these could also be predicate adjectives. The man was first. The woman was third. Okay, so these are adjectives. So Wheelock has asked us, and it's a good thing to ask, that we work on memorizing the cardinal numbers 1 through 25, and then for the larger numbers 100 and 1000, and then to try to memorize the ordinals 1 through 12. And so what I've done on my handout, the Wheelock book doesn't give it to you here in the chapter, but just references the appendix. I've at least put on this handout the cardinals 1 through 25, and then 100 and 1000, and the ordinals 1st through 12th. And then I've also given you the Roman numerals. And there's a few surprises here. If you've learned your Roman numerals in grade school or junior high or high school, you may remember that the Roman numeral 4 always looks like this in our standard use of it. But you'll also see in the ancient world 4 lines like this for the number 4, and we've got some others that have variant forms. All right, so let's read these, and I'll just ask you to repeat after me. We'll read the cardinal numbers, and then we'll read the ordinals. Okay, so unas, una, unam. That's one. Duo, duai, duo. Two. Tres, tria. Three. And then don't write down. I don't write down all of the meanings of these. You've got them from the column here, but just to sort of start the pattern there. So quatuor, 4, quinque, 5, 6, 6, septem, 7, octo, 8, novem, 9, decem, 10, and then 11 is 110, okay, or 1 teen, as it were. So 1 plus 10, 11. Undecim, duodecim, 12. Tridecim, 13. Quatuordecim, 14. Quindecim, 15. Sedecim, 16. Septendecim, 17. And then 18 is 2 from 20. So the word 20 is viginti, viginti. Okay, and this is 2 day from 20, which is 18. So duo de viginti. 19, un de viginti, 1 from 20, and viginti. And then 21 is just viginti plus the cardinal. So I won't read these out loud, but viginti unus, viginti duo, and so forth. Okay. Now, you might wonder, why is 70 here? The reason 70 is here is because Dr. Marshall studied Septuagint for his doctoral work, and the Septuagint is the traditional name for the first Greek translations of the Hebrew books of the Bible. And it's based on the tradition that 72 or 70 elders were involved in that initial translation. And the word for 70 is Septuaginta. So I thought I'd throw this in here just for fun. And then the Roman numeral for 70 is LXX, and that's also a traditional abbreviation for the Septuagint as a Bible translation. 100 centum, and 1,000 mille, and then the declinable neuter plural form for thousands, milia. All right, now let's go back and look at these ordinals real quickly. So we have primus, prima, primum. So for first, notice that this is giving you 3 adjective endings because it follows a standard 2-1-2 pattern. For the rest of these ordinals, I don't give you all 3 of those, but the understanding is that these would be present if we wanted to write them down. Okay? 2 ways to say second: secundus and alter. Okay? Tertius for third, quartus, fourth, quintus, fifth, sextus, sixth, septimus, seventh, octavus, 8, nonus, 9, decimus, 10th, undecimus, 11th, and duodecimus, 12th. All right, very good. Let's real quickly in 1.6 take a look at these sentences, these sample sentences that I've copied over from Wheelock, but we get an opportunity here to work through a bit of the grammar of it. I want you to pay attention to the numbered nouns, especially to their case, gender, and number. And I want you to think about this. Do the numbers agree in form with the nouns they're numbering? And if so, why? If not, why not? All right, so let's look at this first one. Tres pueri, duabus, puellis, rosas dederunt. All right, so 3 boys gave roses to 2 girls. So we're using the perfect of the verb gave. And over here,
we have tres pueri, which is the subject of the verb. Okay, so three boys gave something. Rosas is my direct object. That's why it's got the accusative case ending. And then I've got my indirect object here in the form of two girls. So these boys gave roses to two girls. All right, so notice pueri is what case gender number? Nominative, masculine, plural. Tres, though, is a it's one of the declinable forms, and notice here that we have the nominative masculine plural as well, which we saw up here. Go back, just take a quick look. Right, so here's that nominative masculine plural form. And so that matches, okay, because it has to. But look at duabus puellis. This is the number two, which is also declinable, but it's not masculine; it's feminine because puellis is feminine. Okay, so and because it's the indirect object, it is dative. So this is dative, feminine, and plural, and so duabus is using that dative, feminine, plural form of two that we learned. Okay, so that's what's going on here. Now, this second sentence is basically the same as the first, except we have different things given. Books, libros, instead of roses being given. Boys are still giving to girls, so these are still nominative versus dative feminine plural. But notice that the numbers are different. It's 8 boys that are doing the giving. Even though boys is nominative and plural, octo is indeclinable, so it's octo without any change. All right? And then there are 10 girls, and decem is also indeclinable, and therefore, even though puellis is a dative feminine plural, decem is just decem because it's always decem. All right, so we have no distinction. Now, in these next 6, these all have the same pattern. Wenit is my perfect verb. The it here is third singular, so somebody came. All right, and the one who came in the first sentence is unas wir. So unas wir did the weneting here. One man came, and then each of these is going to have a cum expression. Now, cum is a preposition that takes its object in the ablative case. So all of these are going to be nouns in the ablative case. That's why they're ablative. So amicis is ablative, viris, viris, viris is ablative. Okay. Now we'll talk about the ablative form here in the last one in just a minute. But I want you to look at the number word here. So these are all going to be ablative, and this is ablative masculine plural. So unas wir, here's my number for 1. That is declinable, so notice that it matches weird, but these are both the subject and their nominative masculine singular. Unas wir, one man. Wenit came, cum with, and then I have friends, with friends. But how many? 4. And is 4 a number that declines or not? Well, it doesn't decline. So quatuor is going to be the same form no matter what follows it, no matter what case, no matter what gender. Okay? So one man came with 4 friends. Now, in this next example, consul came, and he came with men, viris, that's again ablative plural, happens to be ablative masculine plural, just like this other one, amicis, but the number's 100 here. And different number, but the principle is still the same as with the number 4. Centum is not declinable, so it's centum no matter what. But with the number 200 as my number, that one does decline. And so notice that it is using the ablative masculine plural form. Now this next example is consul cum mille viris venit. All right, the consul came with men, but how many men in this circumstance? It's not 200, as in ducentis viris, where ducentis has to match, but 1,000. So mille, remember, just when I say 1,000 anything, it's always the same form. It's indeclinable, mille viris. So even though viris is ablative, mille
covers all the cases and genders. Now, with this last example, we have the same basic sentence structure, but different numbers. So, consul cum sex milibus virorum venet. Consul came. The consul came. Cum, with. And then I have not viris in the ablative, right? I'm going to have cum with something in the ablative, but look at what's in the ablative case. It's milibus. Thousand, this is neuter plural, but in the ablative neuter plural. Okay, so he came with thousands. How many thousands? The number here is six. Six sets of 1,000. And sex is indeclinable, so we don't have a different form for it here, even though this is ablative plural. And then notice that virorum is genitive plural, because when I have the neuter plural of thousands, when I want to tell you thousands of what, I'm going to use the genitive plural here following. So with 6,000 of men. And in English, when we say with 6,000 of men, it's basically equivalent to with 6,000 men, okay? So there you go. Good examples here. All right, now in the second half of our time together, we want to talk about quantity expressions and time expressions. Here we're going to first start with expressing portions or parts of a whole, and then after that we'll talk about expressing the time when things occur or happen. Okay, so 2.1, genitive of the whole. And a lot of grammarians will refer to this as a partitive genitive. Okay, that's actually the expression that I'm more accustomed to using rather than genitive of the whole. But we'll explain what we mean by both of these here. These genitive constructions are used to indicate the part or the portion out of a larger group, the whole. The head noun designates the part, and the genitive noun, the whole, out of which the part is taken or understood. So I've got an example here. Pars urbis. Pars urbis. Okay? Now, pars is the head noun, and the noun that is genitive is urbis. You can see that genitive third declension case ending there. And that's the genitive noun. This is a genitive phrase, and so my head noun is being qualified by the genitive noun. And I would translate this as part of the city. Part is a word that expresses a portion, and urbis is the whole out of which the part is designated or understood, part of the city. The pars is part, urbis is whole. Now, in the second example, nemo amicorum meorum. Okay, nemo is the head noun, no one, and then amicorum meorum. This is the expression that functions as a genitive. This is the noun, and this is the possessive adjective here. Okay, but it is genitive, and so no one is the part, and the whole group is my friends. So no one out of the whole set of people known as my friends. So no one of my friends. So the genitive expression indicates the whole out of which the head no one comes. So when do we expect to see this? This is used in number expressions with the number milia. Okay, so when we have that word thousands, and we want to say thousands of something, this is where we're going to see that. Thousands of some whole group, right? There's a whole city with maybe 10,000 people, but I'm talking about 5,000 of the city. Then I'm talking about a portion. Okay, and then this is also used with the neuter nominative accusative of certain adjectives and pronouns that express indefiniteness or quantity. So Wheelock doesn't give you the meaning of these words that are in the grammar, but here are the words they provide, and I've given you the English gloss here in parentheses. So aliquid for something, quid for anything or something, multum for much, plus for more, minus for less, satis for sufficient or enough, nihil for nothing, tantum for so large or much, and quantum for how large or much. So these can be followed by
a genitive expression where we have a whole out of which this stuff represents a part. Um, so nihil temporis, no time or nothing of time. This of here will sound superfluous in English, so you probably wouldn't want to say nothing of time, right? Probably no time. This is a better way to translate that. And then satis eloquentiae, so enough eloquence or sufficient eloquence, maybe sufficient or sufficiency of eloquence, right? But using the of here doesn't really sound very good. But this is a genitive, a feminine singular case ending here for eloquence. All right, 2.2. We can use the ablative with cardinal numbers. Um, and that is actually a typo here. Sometimes belongs on the next line. Sometimes ablative prepositional phrases using the preposition ex or de plus the ablative object can express the whole when the part is one of the following. So this is the same kind of expression as what we just saw, but just a different way to achieve it, using a noun followed by a genitive, a preposition that takes ablative case, like ex or de. So if I have an actual cardinal number, but not milia, then I can put x plus the ablative noun after it. If I have milia, remember it, that is followed by the genitive case. I could have quidam, a certain one, and sometimes pauci, which would mean a few. So here are some examples of each of these three. So tres ex amicis meis. So three, and then this ex plus ablative noun phrase is basically indicating the group out of which the three comes. So three of my friends. Three of my friends. Quidam ex eis. If you remember, we had is, ea, id for our pronouns, our personal pronouns in Latin. And this is one of our personal pronouns in the ablative. So quidam ex eis is one of, a certain one of them. A certain one of them. And then pauci ex amicis meis, same expression as we had up here with tres, but instead of three of my friends, this is a few of my friends. All right. So that's using ablative with cardinal numbers for proportionality here, portioning out expressions. All right. Last part here is the ablative of time, when or the time when something happens or the time within which something happens. So to express time when or the time within which the verbal activity occurs, Latin uses a bare. That means nothing but the ablative time-related phrase. To put it another way, it occurs without a preposition. All right, just the ablative expression without a preposition in front of it. And in English, when we're translating it, we do have to add a preposition, like at, on, in, or within. And Wheelock makes the point that we do not use the word for. You don't want to use one of these expressions with the English translation for, as in for 10 days, because that is a different expression in Latin. Okay? So these ablative expressions for time indicate the time when something happens, not how long, but the location in time when it happens, or the time within which it happens. So, example here, eo tempore non poteram id facere. Now, here eo is the personal pronoun, but if you recall in that chapter on personal pronouns, when the personal pronoun occurs by itself, he, she, or it, or they, when it occurs in the same case and gender with another noun, then it takes on a demonstrative function, and we would then want to translate this as this or that. Now, notice this is ablative. That's an ablative case ending, and in third declension, tempus is a third declension noun. Tempore is the ablative singular as well. So this matches a case gender number. Now, since it's an ablative time expression but without any preposition, we're going to translate it using one of these prepositions here. So at that time. So I mean, you might want to translate this as simply that time, But remember, ablative is locating something in time. So at that time. And then I was not able to do, and it is another pronoun here functioning as the direct object of that infinitive. I was not able to do it, or I could not do it. This is our possum, posse word, possum, and eram is the imperfect of sum. So possum is from potsum, and pot is the real prefix there. Okay, next and final example. Agricolae, bonis, anis, and that should be walebans. My bad. Waleband. All right, and so what is this? This is the imperfect of waleo, and agricolae is the nominative plural subject. So the farmers fared well or flourished. And then I have bonis anis. That's ablative, plural, isn't it? And so that time expression, good years, needs to have an extra word in English because this is telling you when they fared well or flourished. Farmers, the farmers flourished in good years. All right. So that is those are two examples of ablative expressions of time.